The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting a sterile glare across the congressional chamber. The air was thick, not with heat, but with anticipation. Cameras clicked, pens hovered, and all eyes fixated on two figures seated at the center of it all. Alejandra Cortez, the congresswoman who had once lit up campaign stages with fire and compassion, now sat rigid, her jaw clenched, fingers clasped tightly on the table before her. A lone strand of hair had fallen from her perfectly styled bun, clinging to the sweat along her cheek. Her usual spark had dimmed. This wasn't a rally. This was a reckoning. Across from her, Elon Musk looked every bit the disruptor. Calm, calculated, dangerous. He wore no tie, just a slate gray suit, and a stare sharp enough to cut marble. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. With a single motion, he placed a thick manila envelope on the table. The click of the microphone echoed like a gavel. "This," he began, voice cool and cutting, "is a full audit of the Green Recovery Initiative." Alejandra didn't move, didn't breathe. Inside the envelope, contracts, wire transfers, and corporate invoices from shell companies, fictitious vendors linked to environmental startups. On the surface, clean energy investments. But follow the money, and it led to nothing but shadows and campaign-affiliated accounts. He pushed the folder forward, never breaking eye contact. "This was your signature initiative, wasn't it, Congresswoman?" Silence thundered louder than the clicking shutters of press cameras. Alejandra reached for the folder, but her hand stopped mid-air, trembling. He knew. Somehow he knew. She had prepared for political attacks, bad headlines, even betrayal. But not this. Not him. She stared at the folder like it might catch fire. Inside, the truth she had buried beneath ambition was burning its way to the surface. She had prepared for everything, except the truth coming from him. Alejandra Cortez stood on the balcony of her D.C. apartment, eyes scanning the early morning, haze clinging to the Capitol dome like a secret. The city was waking up, sirens in the distance, horns echoing off the marble and steel, headlines already preparing to pounce. Inside, her phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from aides, media requests, fundraisers. Everyone needed something. Everyone always did. She sipped cold coffee, its bitterness grounding her. Behind the power suits, behind the defiant speeches on the House floor, she felt it. The hollow pressure. The silence in her apartment wasn't peace. It was a warning. For all her influence, all her ambition, she was utterly alone. Months ago, that hadn't been the case. Back then, she had announced the Green Recovery Initiative with conviction, standing shoulder to shoulder with Elon Musk at a press conference that felt historic. Billions promised toward clean tech, job creation, and climate justice. The crowd had roared. Cameras flashed like lightning. And for a moment, Alejandra had believed this was the start of something real. But things change. Elon had walked away first. Quietly at first, then loudly. Accusations of ethical blind spots in the implementation process. Tweets turned into televised debates. Their partnership dissolved, leaving behind not just a political rift, but something deeper. A wound. Alejandra had felt something real with him. They'd spoken about more than policy, about their pasts, about faith, about fear. One night, after a fundraising gala, they'd shared a rooftop, a bottle of wine, and a kiss. Just one. Tender. Hesitant. Not political. But now he was a phantom haunting her press conferences. Ben Ruiz leaned against the doorway of her office, arms crossed, watching her pace. "You need sleep," he said flatly. Alejandra shot him a look. "I need results. You think voters care if I'm well rested?" He smirked, pushing off the frame. "What they care about is seeing you win. And you will. We'll push the next funding round through, show receipts, let the heat die down. It's politics. No one remembers the paper trail." That line stuck with her. No one remembers the paper trail. She looked at the vendor summary he'd handed her. The figures didn't make sense, but she didn't question it. Not then. Not when things were moving so fast. Not when deadlines loomed. And not when trust in her team was all she had left. Special Agent Lila Hartman slid the file across the desk in her shared basement office. The hum of fluorescent lighting buzzed above as she watched her partner flip through spreadsheets and digital receipts. This one, she said, tapping a line on the third page. Clean Future Tech. It's a shell. Registered 6 months ago. No office. No staff. Just one P.O. box and $3 million in federal funding. Her partner raised an eyebrow. Cortez's bill? Lila nodded. She didn't say the rest. Not yet. That her sister, an engineer laid off by a legitimate green tech firm, had killed herself the day after their grant was denied. That grief had planted a seed in her. Not for revenge. Lila wasn't that kind of woman, but for answers. And now, all signs pointed to Cortez's office. In the background, Elon Musk was making moves. Quietly, surgically. He had leaked a financial audit to an anonymous journalist 2 weeks earlier. He was no longer invested in saving the initiative. He was interested in exposing it. The night after the leak broke online, he sat alone in his minimalist California home, watching Alejandra's press response on TV. She looked poised, unshaken, but he knew that face. He had kissed that mouth. He knew the cracks behind her confidence. She didn't know, he whispered to himself. But that won't matter when it all collapses. He wasn't angry anymore. He was resolved. Alejandra stared at her reflection in the Capitol bathroom mirror. Her speech was ready. Her staff was waiting. Her name was being called on the floor. But she couldn't stop the tremor in her hand. She didn't know where the money had gone. But she knew this. If she had signed off on fraud, even unknowingly, it wouldn't just be her career that ended. It would be everything she stood for. She walked out the door with her head high, unaware that Lila was downstairs with a subpoena in her coat pocket, and that Elon was already preparing the next folder. The lights dimmed as the TED stage came alive with muted red and gold hues. Elon Musk stood center stage, not as an inventor or a disruptor, but as a self-appointed whistleblower. His eyes scanned the room, sharp and unreadable. "We live in an age," he began, "where charity can be a currency, a smokescreen, a shell game dressed in hope. Ask yourself this. When billions flow into green initiatives, where does the green actually go?" He paused, letting the silence hang. "Eco-charity laundering," he said, voice low, deliberate. "It's the new corruption cloaked in virtue." The crowd murmured. Cameras captured every nuance. Headlines wrote themselves. Back in D.C., Alejandra Cortez watched the clip alone in her campaign office. Her face, usually composed, twitched with restraint. Her phone buzzed, a message from a reporter. "Musk targeting you in his latest speech. Comments." She didn't respond. She couldn't. Outside her office door, chaos brewed. In the adjacent room, Ben Ruiz sat hunched over his laptop, eyes darting. He knew time was short. He knew the subpoenas had landed. The first came in that morning, delivered with bureaucratic precision by a woman in a dark coat, Special Agent Hartman. Ben had smiled at the delivery. Cool. Unbothered. But now, panic. He deleted encrypted files from his hard drive, wiped messages, formatted drives. One by one. Clean quiet. Alejandra stepped into the room. "We got it. Subpoenas. Lila Hartman's leading the charge." Ben didn't look up. "She's just fishing. No one has anything." "Then why are you deleting files?" she asked, voice brittle. He turned to her, smirking like it was a joke. "This is politics," he said. "Nobody's clean. Not really." Her breath caught, heart suddenly pounding. "Did you falsify those vendor reports?" Her voice cracked slightly. He didn't answer, just stared calm as ever. "Ben," she started. He cut her off. "You signed them. That's what matters." She stood frozen, the room colder than before. The notes began arriving 2 days later. Typed. Untraceable. Folded into plain envelopes. "You're not in control anymore." Alejandra held the first one in trembling fingers as her staff hustled past, avoiding eye contact. The once vibrant office, the one filled with laughter, hope, and caffeine-fueled debates, had turned into a graveyard. Whispers replaced strategy sessions. Loyalty vanished. Another note arrived. "You trusted the wrong people." She no longer knew who was leaking, or who was listening. That night, she stared at the ceiling of her apartment, unable to sleep. She thought about Ben's betrayal, about the sting of Musk's televised digs, about the dozens of constituents she had genuinely wanted to help. Where had it all gone so wrong? Lila Hartman sat across from a junior aide, recorder running. You ever see unusual payments? Discrepancies? Lila's voice was steady, non-threatening. The aide hesitated. There were contracts. A few seemed fake. I didn't question it. Ben said it was normal. Would you testify to that? The young woman swallowed hard, then nodded. Lila leaned back, a flicker of pain behind her professional mask. This wasn't just about Alejandra or Ben. It was about her sister. It was about accountability. Alejandra's suspicion turned to certainty when a confidential memo she wrote appeared, verbatim, on a blog the next morning. No one outside her team had seen it. No one but Musk. She called him. It went to voicemail. She left no message. That afternoon, she walked into Ben's office. Found him standing at the window, hands in his pockets. You leaked the memo, she said. He turned, unbothered. No, but someone needed to. You think he's the only one playing dirty? I gave everything for this cause, she whispered. Everything. He shrugged. So did I. Just not for the same reasons. As she walked out of the room, Alejandra knew something had shifted. This wasn't about saving her image anymore. This was survival. Not just political. Personal. Next, Part 4. Turning point. The investigation corners Alejandra. A whistleblower comes forward, and her relationship with Musk resurfaces under shocking new light. Would you like me to continue with the next part? The chamber was full. Not just of politicians, but of cameras, judgment, and a nation hungry for spectacle. The congressional hearing wasn't just news. It had become theater. Rows of reporters tapped at their keyboards like vultures pecking at carcasses. At the center of it all sat Alejandra Cortez, shoulders square, eyes blank. The world waited to see her crack. She hadn't slept in 2 nights. She couldn't remember her last real meal. All she could remember was the memo leak, the subpoenas, the notes, and Ben's eyes when he said, "Nobody's clean." Now the country was watching, and Elon Musk had just walked into the lion's den. He took his oath without hesitation, the Bible untouched by fear. Dressed in a muted suit, he looked more like a surgeon about to make an incision than a tech mogul out for blood. I'm not here to settle political scores, he began, voice steady. I'm here because deception disguised as progress is still deception. He handed over a thick dossier. These are shell corporations, he said, funded through the Green Workforce Restoration Act. Money was funneled, quietly, consistently, to entities that never delivered services. And they were all approved under this administration's funding protocols. The room held its breath. He continued. This wasn't just oversight. This was a structure designed to bypass scrutiny. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Alejandra didn't blink, but her grip on the table tightened. Flashback. 2 years earlier. Late night. Alejandra sat at her desk, eyes red, paperwork stacked in dizzying towers. Ben placed a folder before her. We need your sign-off on this batch of vendor clearances. Nothing major, just the clean energy rollout. She didn't question him. She trusted him. She signed. She moved to the next file, unaware her pen had opened a back door. Back to present. Lila Hartman stood to speak, visibly shaken, but determined. We traced a major deposit, she said, lifting a document. Made from one of those shell entities into an account under Ben Ruiz's name. A Cayman branch. She looked toward Alejandra. I don't believe the Congresswoman orchestrated this, but I do believe she let it happen. Alejandra stared straight ahead. Her heart slammed in her chest. Her ears buzzed. The world shrank to the sound of her own guilt echoing. Then Musk spoke again. This isn't a political attack, he said calmly. It's a reality check. Someone believed this program would save their job. Instead, they lost everything. He looked down. Quietly, respectfully. Lila's hand slipped into her jacket pocket. She pulled out a small, worn photo. Her sister, Mary Ann, smiling with a lunchbox, helmet on, standing outside a now-defunct solar assembly plant. Tears welled in her eyes. She waited for the job that never came. Lila whispered. She believed in this. Ben Ruiz was next. He walked in like a man rehearsing regret. He took the stand, placed his hand on the Bible, swore the truth, then dropped a bomb that detonated what was left of Alejandra's defenses. I forged her signature. A gasp cut through the chamber. But she never asked questions. Ben continued, voice low. She trusted me. Blindly. A crack formed across Alejandra's expression. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her hand trembled on the table. A single thought screamed in her mind. I didn't steal. I didn't lie. I didn't know. But that wasn't enough. Negligence had a body count. She wanted to run. Not from the cameras or the press. From herself. From the version of her that had once believed intent was enough. The chairwoman asked, Congresswoman Cortez, would you like to respond? Alejandra stood slowly. Her voice, when it came, was raw. I thought I was building something. Something that could give people hope. I didn't see it happening. I didn't look hard enough. She looked at Ben, then at Lila. I wasn't corrupt, but I wasn't careful, and people got hurt. The cameras captured everything, the silence, the devastation, the truth finally exposed. But the most haunting image was Alejandra's eyes as she sat back down. Not broken, just empty. Next, Part 5 Fallout. As public backlash explodes and the Justice Department opens a formal investigation, Alejandra retreats from the spotlight and confronts Musk privately, where old flames and deeper betrayals rise from the ashes. The cuffs clicked shut around Ben Ruiz's wrists before sunrise. He didn't fight, didn't argue, just looked at the pavement, like maybe if he stared long enough, it would open up and swallow him. Outside the courthouse, the crowd surged. Protesters, supporters, press, shouting over each other like truth was something that could be screamed into submission. Any comment, Ben? Did you forge more documents? Was the Congresswoman involved deeper than she claims? He didn't speak, but the silence said enough. Guilt had finally grown too loud to ignore. That same afternoon, Alejandra Cortez stepped before a podium in the Capitol's briefing room for the last time. No teleprompter, no script. I resign, she said, voice barely above a whisper, for the integrity of the office, for the people who trusted me, and for the ones who didn't. Cameras flashed like gunfire. I believed I could fix the system from within, but I stopped looking when it mattered most. I let others walk ahead of me, and I didn't ask where we were going. She paused, her eyes searching for something, maybe forgiveness, maybe just a place to rest her gaze. Power makes it easy to forget that trust is a currency too, and I bankrupted it. Then she walked away. No applause, just the quiet hum of consequences finally settling in. In the months that followed, Elon Musk became both messiah and monster. Networks debated his motives. Was he a truth-teller exposing rot in the system, or a tycoon leveraging collapse for personal legacy? In one interview, he smiled faintly. I didn't bring this down, he said. I just refused to look away. Lila Hartman sued the vendors. Every single one. Fraud, negligence, misappropriation. The trial took nearly a year. She stood alone at the final hearing, holding her sister's photo. We can't resurrect the people lost in paperwork, she said, but we can damn well make sure no one profits from their graves. She won. Millions in damages. But the victory felt hollow. Because Marianne was still gone. Years passed. Alejandra vanished from the headlines, from the speaking circuits, from Washington. For a while, conspiracy theories flourished. Some claimed she'd left the country. Others whispered about a breakdown. The truth was quieter. She changed her name, moved to a modest town in northern Colorado. No aides, no cameras. Just a tiny apartment above a coffee shop and a job few recognized her in. She taught civics at a community college. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her students loved her, called her Ms. C. They had no idea, and she never told them. Then came election night. One of her brightest students, Maya Lin, stood on stage holding a city council victory speech in trembling hands. The auditorium echoed with cheers. Alejandra sat in the third row, unnoticed, her gray hair tucked behind her ears. Maya spoke about policy, change, transparency. Words Alejandra once believed in with the fire of a crusader. When the crowd rose in ovation, Alejandra didn't stand, but she clapped softly, steadily. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. For the first time in years, she smiled. Not because she was healed, but because something good had grown from the wreckage. And sometimes that was enough. The desk drawer stuck slightly. The wood had swollen from age, or maybe from the weight of secrets stuffed inside. Alejandra tugged gently, then firmer, and it gave way with a soft groan. Inside, it was nearly empty now. Just old paperbacks she used for class, a few photos of protests long forgotten, and a single envelope. Unopened. It had sat there for months. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable, Lila's. To the woman who stopped the bleeding, just a little too late. Alejandra stared at it. Her fingers grazed the edge, but didn't lift it. Justice doesn't always arrive in courtrooms. Sometimes it slips in quietly, through fractured reputations, quiet resignations, and apologies that take years to shape into words. Some wounds never see headlines. They live in the stillness that follows a lie exposed, in the silence between old friends who no longer speak, in the echo of a door that was never knocked on again. Alejandra's gaze drifted to the window. Snow was falling, soft and aimless. Students were gathered below, laughing over coffee and cramming for finals. She had once believed in revolutions. Now she taught the basics of government with a kind of reverence. Like maybe if you started with small truths, they couldn't be so easily corrupted. She wasn't evil. Just tired. Just proud. Just human. And he wasn't a savior. Just a man with a flashlight, exposing the mold no one wanted to see. Elsewhere, Musk sat before a fire in a remote estate, alone, reading a news article that praised and condemned him in equal measure. He smirked faintly, eyes flicking to the headline before folding it in half and tossing it aside. In the drawer, the envelope remained untouched, but its presence lingered. Lila's final words, just beneath the seal. "We all failed, my sister, but at least one of us tried to fix it." Alejandra closed the drawer without reading it, but for the first time, she didn't lock it.